Evet, kaldığımız yerden devam ediyoruz. En son bir Lothring'e geldik. Sonra bizi haydutlar sıkıştırdı bunda. Hepsini öldürdük. Son. Şimdi bakalım, konuşalım. Warwick, İngilizce görüyor musun oğlum? Akça parçası. Ha, ne o? Ne verdi bana? Asa. İyi gibi duruyor lan. Bayağı iyi. Oğlum bedavadan item kazandık lan. Çok güzel, neyse hemen bir bakalım. Hop, tamam. Morrigan,
What do you wish of me?
gel de sana konuşalım.
If you must.
Nasıl biçimde yaşayan oldu?
I was not born such. 'Tis a skill of Flemeth's, taught over many years in the wilds. The chastened have tales of we witches. When a child is alone and separate from his tribe, that is when we strike, dragging the young boy kicking and screaming to our lair to be devoured.
Hmm. Bunu demeyelim ya. Yani aslında tam Morrigan'lık.
Oh, I truly doubt that children would be worth the effort. They are filthy, smelly things full of tears and snot and trouble. That said, I cannot speak for the tastes of my mother. She has, after all, lived a very lengthy time in the wilds and done many things I know nothing of. Why do you ask? Is there something specific you wish to know?
Hop hop hop. Herkes olabilir mi?
Anyone with sufficient will. But the act of transformation is a magical one. 'Tis a spell and thus requires a mage's talents. If you had a notion to learn such a skill for yourself, sadly, you must remain disappointed.
Hayvan olarak.
There were nights when the wilds called to me, 'tis true. You look upon the world around you and you think you know it well. I have smelled it as a wolf, listened as a cat, prowled shadows that you
Çok iyi
never
lan.
dreamed existed. But my life is as a human. I am under no illusions to the contrary.
Aynen ha.
They do not shy away from me. To their senses, I believe I seem like any other of their species. As to what they think, I truly cannot say. Just as I am still human, no matter my form, they are still animals. Thus they cannot speak, even were I to ask.
Tüt tüt tüt.
No, 'tis not unheard of in the remote corners of the world. There are traditions of magic outside of the circle of magi, despite what those mages would have you believe. Some of these traditions are old, indeed, passed down as carefully guarded lore from one generation to the next. The zealots of the chantry would uproot all such practitioners if they could. But as luck have it, some still exist. My mother
Bilemet
is such a
çok
one.
fena bir şey herhalde ya. Yani aynı.
I am surprised you think so. Still, 'tis a pleasant thing to hear.
Peki.
The form of an animal is different from my own. One may study the creature, learn to move as it does, think as it does. In time, this allows one to become as it is. I gain nothing by studying another human. I already am the same as they are. I learn nothing. So the answer is no, my human form is the only one I possess.
Aynen bu kadar.
Indeed. Have you an opinion on my abilities, then? Am I an unnatural abomination to be put to the torch?
Yani bence oldukça şey yani. Faydalı. Yani
Oh, you're simply full of surprises, little man, aren't you? But enough of such talk. Let us proceed, lest the dust gather on us.
ne MORRİGAN ampuğu orta 7. O ilişkimiz mi arttı? Ben bir kaydederim.
What do
Biraz
you
daha
wish of me?
konuşacağım.
If you must.
Peki ama başkalarına da
I cannot
öğretebilir
teach
misin?
you, no, but any other mages that cared to learn,
Hmm.
yes. Send whoever you wish my way, and I shall teach them what I can.
Okey.
What do you wish of me?
Bir şey
If
sormak
you
istiyorum.
must.
Bu ormanda mı büyüdün?
Why do you ask me such questions? I do not probe you for pointless information, do I? Beg pardon then while I jump for joy. What is it you asked? If I grew up in the wilds? A curious question. Where else would you picture me? For many years it was simply Flemeth and I. The wilds and its creatures were more real to me than Flemeth's
Kıymet en
tales of the
güçlü
world
cadı
away.
herhalde ya.
In time I grew curious. I left the wilds to explore what lay beyond, never for long. Brief forays into a civilized wilderness.
Hı. Ya fark edilmedi
For
mi
the
ya?
most part, Flemeth taught me well. For all that I had been taught, however, the truth of the civilized lands proved to be overwhelming. I was unfamiliar with so much. So confident and bold was I, yet there was much that Flemeth could never have prepared me for.
Hmm.
Equal parts daring and foolhardy, perhaps. Only once was I accused of being a witch of the wilds, and that by a chastened who happened to be travelling with a
Ya
merchant
fark edilmiş.
caravan. He pointed and gasped and began shouting in his strange language, and most assumed he was casting some curse upon me. I acted the terrified girl, and naturally, he was arrested.
Hızlı düşünür.
Men are always willing to believe two things about a woman. One, that she is weak, and two, that she finds him attractive. I played the weakling and battered my eyelashes at the captain of the guard. Child's play. The point being that I was able to move through human lands fairly easily. Whatever humans think a witch of the wild looks like, 'tis not I. Not that I did not have trouble. There are things about human society which have always puzzled me, such as the touching. Why all the touching for a simple greeting?
Tokalaşmak mı?
To begin with, yes. What is the point of touching my hand? I find it an offensive intrusion. There were many nuances that Flemeth could never tell me of. When to look into another's eyes, how to eat at a table, how to bargain without offending. None of these things I knew. I still do not understand it all, truth be told, but then I gave up long ago any hope of doing so. When I returned to the wilds last, I swore to Flemeth that I had no intention of leaving again. Yes? Let's ignore the entire Darkspawn threat in the presence of a simpleton as your only other Grey Warden ally, then. Not that I lack appreciation for the intent of your comment. Thank you. Well, let's get on with it before the ground opens up and swallows us, yes?
Okey. Kaydedelim ama. Ha, bu bölüm full konuşma olacak herhalde ya. Ama yani görmek istiyorum. Bunlar önemli. Listarla bakalım. Bu artı 11 tarafsız ilişkimiz. Warwick'le full abi arkadaşça. MORRİGAN. MORRİGAN'la interested. Ha, güzel. Güzel abi. Biraz daha konuşalım.
Yes?
Bir sormak istiyorum.
So, full of questions, are you?
İş muhabbesini ele geçirdi mi?
You are very cute to ask so many questions.
Seninle kaçamak cevapları verdiğinde çok memnun oluyoruz.
Really? Perhaps we should be wrapped in ribbons and adorned with flowers. So cute are we, too. My mother has been hunted from time to time, yes, by Templar fools like Alistair, which should tell you how successful they generally were.
Yani
Flemeth made a
Flemeth
bit of a game of
böyle
it. in
geçirilmez
fact.
ya.
The Templars would come again, and she would look at me and smile and say that the fun was to begin once more.
Bir de bu çocuk oyuncudur onun için.
I am unsure. I was too young to understand, and perhaps 'twas bravado on Flemeth's part, or perhaps she was merely amused. I will never know. Flemeth would warn them once. 'Twas a warning they inevitably failed to heed. And then the true game began. Often Flemeth would use me as bait. A little girl to scream and run and lure the
Adamlar
Templars
işi
deeper into
bu
the
şey yapmış
wilds
ya.
and to their doom.
Hı. Aynen çoğu kişi valla takip etmiş olmalı.
Sometimes, eventually. Thankfully, the wilds is a vast place. Once they found us, Flemeth would simply move us elsewhere and we would be lost within the forest once again. I did not understand the danger we faced until I was much older. I had never heard of apostates or maleficarum.
Abi hak ettiklerini buldular.
Perhaps they did. Still, I do not begrudge them doing what they believe is necessary. The
Aynen, o da
Chantry
doğru.
sees any mages not leashed to the Circle of Magi as apostates, and apostates could become maleficarum, evil mages that resort to blood magic and become demon-enslaved abominations. It may even be true, still, those of us who prefer freedom see no reason to submit.
Tamamıyla katılıyorum
Oh,
abi.
I hope you are not simply being agreeable. It would be a refreshing change. Enough of this talk. Let us return to the task at hand.
Okey. Kaydet yeniden. Aynen bu bölüm full Morrigan'la konuşma. Yani Morrigan'ı tanıma. Ne kadar olmuş lan ilişkimiz? 38. Artıyor lan.
Yes?
Sadece konuşarak şey artıyor. Şimdi orada bir şeyler
So,
daha vardı.
full of questions, are you?
Flamet abi, şu Flamet'i merak ediyorum.
Well, that depends, does it not? What does she seem to be?
O kafayı sinir.
Sometimes I do wonder the very same
Çok
thing.
bilgi abi.
Tell me, how much
Kadim
do
bir
you
şey
know
herhalde
of the
ya.
tale? The one that the chastened still tell of my mother, to frighten them into obedience.
Oo. Abi bilmiyorum ki. Hmm. Abi haberim bile yok.
Ah, I see. That does explain much. I can relay what Flemeth once told me herself, and you can decide whether or not 'tis the truth, if you desire.
Yani tabii anlasın, ilginç yani abi,
As the
Flamet
tale
sonuçta.
is sung by the bards, there was a time when Flemeth was young and beautiful, a fair lass in a land of barbarian men, the desire of any who saw her.
Hı. Aynen,
The
söylemişti
tales
işte.
say that Flemeth fell in love with Osen the bard, and fled the castle of her husband, the dread Lord Conabar, and that he swore vengeance for her infidelity. In truth, my mother claims that 'twas Osen who was her husband, and Conabar the
Olaya bak
jealous
lan.
lord who looked on from afar. Lord Conabar approached young Osen and offered him wealth and power in exchange for his lovely wife, and Osen agreed.
Adil bir anlaşma.
Aye, it was. 'Twas Flemeth who suggested the arrangement in the first place. All would have been well had Lord Conabar kept his end of the bargain. But he was a foul man who bargained with coin he did not possess. Osen was led off to a field and slain, left for dead. Flemeth spoke to the spirits and learned of the deed, and swore revenge. That was not the point. Conabar had no honor, so she would not have him. Flemeth begged the spirits to aid her, and 'twas they who slew Conabar. The demon the legend tells of came later. Lord Conabar's allies chased Flemeth, you see, chased her to the wilds, and there she
İblis.
hid. There she found the demon, and he made her strong. The legends all speak of the great hero Cormac, he who defeated Flemeth and her great army when she invaded the lowlands centuries later. All lies. The truth of the matter is that there was never an invasion. As Flemeth tells it, the Chastened never raised an army under her banner, and she never fought with any warrior named Cormac. Cormac led a brutal civil war against his own people, and later claimed it was to vanquish
Ha,
evil
ben de
that had taken root
odaklandığım için
amongst the
konuşmuyorum. O
lords.
yüzden.
Thus, he was hailed a hero. Flemeth was only attached to the legend
Ben de
much
okuyorum yani.
later. Perhaps 'twas due to the great war with the Chastened that eventually came, but Mother claims not to know how it began.
Hmm. İlginç bir hikaye.
Flemeth tells it with far more embellishment than I, but you are welcome. Dare I ask of your own mother? Few are abominations of legend, 'tis true, but I find myself curious nevertheless.
Annem öldü
Oh,
abi.
then you have my sympathies for what it is worth. Which is very little, I am certain. It matters not. Let us move on.
Okey. Sürekli artırıyor lan. Kaydedelim bir daha.
Yes? So, full of questions, are you?
Bayağı bir daha konuşacağız. Bakalım.
I assume you are actually asking whether Flemeth herself gave birth to me.
Aynen.
Truly, I do not know. I once asked Flemeth that very question, and she merely laughed at me. 'Tis not inconceivable that she could capture a chastened man, or perhaps change to a more attractive form to attract him willingly. I find it more... It seems likely, does it not? In an animal form, a babe. I do know the tales of Flemeth having many daughters, even though I have never met another. And Flemeth has... What an odd thing to say! Why must love enter into the equation? Flemeth taught me everything I needed to learn. How to survive, the meaning of power, the truth of men. If other mothers do not teach these...
Doğru
You
söylüyor.
suppose it's true? 'Tis true. Take yourself. You do not honestly desire such things from me, do you? 'Tis better to be free of... There. I am glad you agree. I tire of this discussion. Let us move on, shall we?
Okey. Yine abi bir bakalım bu bölüm full bu şekilde. Okey oldu lan. Ha, o zaman abi ne yapalım? Devam.
So, full of questions, are you? Possibly, if I had the desire to. I do not.
Dıt dıt dıt dıt dıt. O zaman nasıl istiyorsan. Tat tat tırırıt. Ormanda aynen.
At times, perhaps. A world full of people and buildings and things was all very foreign to me. If I wished companionship, I ran with the wolves and flew with the birds. If I spoke, 'twas to the trees.
Aynen lan.
For a time, but one can only remain a child for so long. I recall the first time I crept beyond the edge of the wilds. I did so in animal form, remaining in the shadows and watching these strange townsfolk from afar. I happened upon a noblewoman by her carriage, adorned in sparkling garments the likes of... I snuck up behind her and stole a hand mirror from the carriage. 'Twas encrusted in gold and crystalline gemstones, and I... to the wilds.
Sonra ne oldu?
Flemeth was furious with me. I was a child and had not yet come into my full power. To teach me a lesson, Flemeth took the mirror and
Aga be.
smashed it upon the ground.
Aynen biz
Aye,
çocuktun yani.
and a foolish one. Flemeth was right to break. Beauty and love are fleeting and have no meaning. Without those lessons, I would not be here today, as difficult as they might have been.
Yani daha güçlü yapmışlar.
They did indeed. To return to your original question, perhaps my time in the wilds was indeed... I find myself at times wondering what might have become of the girl with the beautiful golden...
Yine bir kaydet abi. Tamam abi, bu bölüm full bu şekilde ya. O zaman bir dahaki yönü görevi de yapıyoruz.